Earlier today, this came through my email. What is popcorn brain? How social media may be killing your attention span via the New York Post. This may seem corny, but if you're feeling overwhelmed by the nonstop pace of digital media and find yourself struggling to concentrate on a single task or thought, you may have popcorn brain. Popcorn brain refers to the tendency for our attention and focus to jump quickly from one thing to another, like popping corn kernels. Clinical psychologist Dr. Daniel Glazer told Metro UK last week. Popcorn brain isn't new. The term was coined in 2011 by University of Washington researcher David Levy, but mental health experts are sharing new ways to combat the phenomenon as our lives become more digital. One study found that 62.3% of the global population is on social media, with the average daily usage last month clocking in at 2 hours and 23 minutes. And I thought, what a perfect time to bring in my next guest on the Celebrity Hotline, Dr. Francis Murphy of Dallas Wellness. Dr. Murphy, thank you so much for taking the time on this Monday afternoon.
Hey, Dennis, how you doing?
Well, Dr. Murphy, first, just give the listenership of the Bloom Daddy Show up here in Cleveland your background and how you came to be a Dallas Wellness doctor.
Okay. Well, I started out as a chiropractor, somebody who just knows wellness really well. And a couple of years ago, I started working with patients that were suffering from ADD, ADHD, and, having problems taking control of their brain. They weren't sleeping well. They were drinking a lot of energy drinks, and they're watching their telephones and iPads and TVs incessantly. And so these things all kind of come together, and they lead to what you just described as popcorn brain. And so as I see more and more of these children, I notice that their postures have become very distorted because of the amount of time they spend, cantilevered over their phone. And it changes what I call their neuroskeletal geometry. It actually messes with their vagus nerve. It causes them to have high cortisol levels, high adrenaline levels, and their attention spans just kind of melt away.
We're talking with Dr. Francis Murphy, and that is fascinating and scary at the same time. So what you're saying is it's not just the brain that is being affected by the constant viewing of the phone. It's the posture, which in turn adversely affects the vagus nerve, which can then create a whole host of subsequent problems.
Exactly.
Wow. What made you get into or specialize in the ADHD diagnoses?
Well, it really came about it quite accidentally. In 2006, I had a patient that came in with frozen shoulder syndrome, and nobody knew what caused it, and nobody knew how to treat it. And I worked with a woman for about 6 months, and I actually was able to figure out what was the cause of that. And in my study of it, it seemed to me impossible that this particular malfunction of the neuroskeletal geometry could affect this nerve that runs the shoulder and not the vagus nerve. And so I started to look into this particular people that were having problems with regulation of their vagus nerve. And sure enough, they had this neuroskeletal geometry, which responded really, really well to the treatment that I developed.
Talking with Dr. Francis Murphy of Dallas Wellness, www.dallaswellness.com. And Dr. Murphy, I take it you've had, I don't know, literally hundreds of parents coming to you with their kids saying, hey, is there a way you can help my kid out? I mean, and then if that's the case, as I suspect it is, what do you say? What are your first moves? What's your protocol when somebody comes calling with a younger person?
Well, I tell you, the teenagers are the most difficult people on the planet to work with, because if you try to take their phone away from them, well, do you know any teenagers?
Yeah, I have
Try
one.
to
Yeah.
take their phone away from them, it would be a fist fight. And I've actually had employees quit because they weren't allowed to carry their phones around all day long. So that's a one primary thing. You have to be able to put your phone down and not be connected to it all the time. I start out by telling them that it's a 5-pronged type of approach. You have to get your sleep down. You have to get your exercise down. You have to get your nutrition down pat. You got to stay away from artificial sweeteners and food colorings. And you have to think good thoughts. All my patients are required to say every day in every way, I am getting better and better. It's an affirmation that pulls them off of this constant spiral downward with their ability to cope with the slightest thing in life.
And you're even talking about it as if the content on the phone is generic. I mean, you're not even assigning patterns to what is viewed. You're just saying the viewing itself or the consuming itself is what can cause all sorts of havoc. And then you tack on, okay, what is being viewed, what's being consumed. It can be a whole host of other problems. But I'm wondering, though, when you talk about the wellness, and I am someone who has had a sleep disorder. I have, since 2002 it was diagnosed, and I've been taking sleeping pills ever since, and I don't foresee ever being able to get off of the sleeping pills. What do you say to those of us who don't think we're ever going to be able to get off the sleeping pills?
Well, lots of people come to me, and to tell you exactly how you're going to get off the sleeping pills, I would have to, see your blood work and see where things have gone wrong. But one simple little thing that I tell people that's been very, very helpful is this. There's a book out there by James Nestor called Breath. A lot of people have read it, and he teaches you different ways to breathe. And one thing I've taught my patients to do is a thing called box breathing, which is very simple. The Marines use it to when their guys get in super stressful situations. And it's basically breathing into a 4 count and then holding your breath for a 4 count and then breathing out for a 4 count and holding your breath for a 4 count. It's called 4x4 breathing or box breathing. And it can reduce your blood pressure and your heart rate dramatically if you do it for a couple minutes. It can also forces you to get all those things that are on your mind off your mind because you're focusing on the one thing, and that is the breathing. And once your blood pressure and heart rate come down, it becomes easier to get control of your mind and to actually fall asleep. Now, with the time you go to sleep, you should set a time and go to sleep at the same time every day. You shouldn't try to go to sleep 10 o'clock one day, 8 o'clock another day, midnight another day. This throws your circadian rhythm off, and you can never really get a good night's sleep. You're always waking up at the odd hours, and so I highly recommend that you get your sleep cycle right. And then when you eat, first thing that you eat is very, very important. And that would be the next thing I would begin to talk to you about.
Dr. Murphy, thank you so much for your time. Before you go, though, if I'm a parent, I am a parent of a teenager, of a high schooler, but any parents out there and their kids have the smartphones, what is 60 seconds of advice you would give to those parents?
I would say to those parents to sit down and first I would say, please go and understand what it is that's happening to your kids by using the phone so much. Really understand it. Don't just say, oh, I heard this, I heard that, I'm here. Really understand it, and then go look them in the eye and tell them, look, I care about you, I love you, you can't do this to yourself. You need to help me with our other kids to get off the phone. And just somehow you have to reach into their brain to some wisdom that's in there somewhere.
Yeah. Dr. Francis Murphy, really appreciate you taking the time on this Monday, on this President's Day. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Dennis.